And so, my fellow Americans,
when people think of JFK's 1960 election, they don't necessarily think of Latinx voters. But John F. Kennedy might actually not have been elected without them. His brother Bobby was banking on it. So 3 months before the election, he met with Latinx lawmakers, and that's when Viva Kennedy clubs were born.
There was a great thirst for an independent demonstration of Latino political power, something that could really show people at the local level and at the national level that Mexican Americans especially could be a force to be reckoned with.
The clubs were grassroots and regional, and each branch had its own tactics to appeal to voters, like politicians speaking to voters in Spanish.
Sí, muchas gracias, amigos.
The 1960 election was really an experiment in Spanish language outreach. And so whereas Mexican Americans or Puerto Ricans were largely ignored in previous elections, they became a mainstay of presidential election politics thereafter.
Queridos amigos.
Even Jackie Kennedy started speaking to voters in Spanish.
8 de noviembre. Que viva Kennedy.
That was the strongest connection between Jackie Kennedy and Spanish-speaking voters. And later on, in the Kennedy administration, the First Lady would basically serve as an unofficial ambassador for the Latin American descended community in the United States, but also in official diplomatic trips to Mexico and Venezuela, where people would just go crazy when Jackie Kennedy started speaking Spanish and personalizing the Kennedy administration to a broader audience.
Mente humana. Viva Mexico.
Women also played a key role in Viva Kennedy clubs, organizing local events and helping voters pay a poll tax, a fee meant to keep minorities from voting.
They would sponsor dances, they would sponsor barbecues, they would sponsor all kinds of fundraisers.
67 million Americans go to the polls, the greatest turnout in history.
On Election Day, thousands of Latinx voters cast their ballots for Kennedy, and 85% of all Mexican Americans voted for him. Kennedy's victory was slim, and Latinx voters helped carry him in key states like New York and Illinois. In Texas, where Kennedy won by just 50,000 votes, he had a 200,000 vote cushion from Mexican American voters. In return, they expected a commitment to Latinx issues, and they called him out when he failed to nominate any Latinos to his cabinet or as ambassadors to Latin American countries. The Latinx voting bloc is often referred to as a sleeping giant, because while turnout has historically been low, the right candidate or issue can cause a surge that sends shockwaves through an election. In 2020, 32 million Latinos are eligible to vote, the largest minority voting bloc in the country. And once again, they could make all the difference.
I think there are organizations that are trying to do the same thing that the Viva Kennedy clubs are trying to do, which is rather than focus on the Latino vote nationally, they're trying to create a community of Latino voters and particularly Latino Democrats at the local level. And I think that's just a necessary part of building a movement.